Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. My name is Djtimx, and I am here to talk about some stuff. I've got a lot of things to say, and frankly, a lot of people have been asking me lately about all the aircraft incidents. Okay, some people have asked me about all the aircraft incidents that have happened this year. Okay, so I've got a lot to talk about when it comes to these aircraft incidents, and frankly, I want to be honest with everyone. There's a lot of questions in the air about whether or not these incidents are related to the current administration, the Donald Trump regime, and Elon Musk's cuts at the FAA. And honestly, as much as I'd like to blame the orange bastard for everything, I just can't. In this particular case, I have gone back and looked over all the incidents that have happened this year. I've checked them all out, and yeah, I can't tie them together. There is no definitive proof. There's nothing I can say or do um, that can point the blame at any one particular person or administration or whatnot. That being said, I am not a pilot. I am not an expert in this particular field. However, I have been playing Flight Simulator for a very long time. That being said, when it comes to playing Flight Simulator, it is a pretty realistic game. There are a lot of things that you learn about being pilots and about being air traffic controllers and about flying a plane around. You do learn a lot through this. It's not just a game, it's kind of a learning tool in some ways. And that's the ways I have taken advantage of it. I do follow a lot of podcasts on the internet, and I watch a lot of videos from a lot of good pilots that are very excellent at what they do. So I am knowledgeable. I do some of my homework. I'm honestly about to start taking my private pilot lessons. However, as you all can tell, I am broadcasting from the BMX studio. So right now, instead of learning how to fly a plane, I'm racing bicycles. I figure the day is going to come when I cannot race bicycles any longer, and that's probably when I'm going to start learning how to fly a plane. Not professionally, but more of on an amateur level. That being said, I'm going to go over just a couple of the aircraft incidents, and I'm going to mention a few of the key points that lead to my decision in the fact that the cuts at the FAA did not have anything to do with this. Unfortunately, I could be wrong. Please feel free to tell me I'm wrong. KidHurricaneShow@gmail.com is where you can get a hold of me. So let's start with talking about the mid-air collision at Washington, DCA Airport. Now, I'm a nerd, so obviously anytime there's a horrible accident, one of the first things I do is take a good look at the maps. Sometimes I even recreate the flight. So in my flight simulator, I flew into the correct runway, and I did the circle to land at the runway 33. And I have to say, doing a circle to land to me is actually pretty challenging. It's not the easiest because you're not just doing an automated landing. In a lot of the cases, these planes will land themselves, but in some cases they won't. The circle to land procedure, there may be an automated landing for that, but in the flight simulator game that I play, you take the ILS to one runway, and then it tells you to manually, physically turn around and land at the other runway. And that's what I did. And it wasn't as easy as normal. Normally, the instrument landing system will put the plane down on that runway. But in this case, they did a circle to land to runway 33. Now, the pilots of that plane weren't in any way responsible for this, from what I can tell, and from what anybody can tell. The problem was that a Black Hawk helicopter on a training mission took off, was flying too high from what we can tell, and was not in its scheduled zone. Every plane has a scheduled zone where they're supposed to be. It was too high and out of its zone. And the air traffic controllers, honestly, from what I can tell, did everything that they had to do. They repeatedly asked him or asked the pilots of the helicopter whether or not they saw the CRJ in their way. And honestly, they said that they did. When reviewing the case and everything, I would say that they were looking at the wrong plane. They were looking at the plane that was taking off, not the plane that was landing. And they promptly continued to fly in it. Now, when you're flying a plane or a helicopter, you have a lot of blind spots. And this is one of the several factors. I'm sure we'll learn in the future that another factor is the fact that they were flying with their night vision goggles on. This is all speculation. But what happened is that helicopter flew into the CRJ and it killed 67 people. It was a terrible thing that happened. Our hearts go out to all the families of everyone involved. I even want to send my hearts out to the air traffic controllers on duty that day, because that was probably a terrible thing to have to go through. Another incident to mention is that there was a small but chartered plane, so it was a commercial flight in Alaska that disappeared for a while and was eventually found, and all 10 people on board of this plane were dead. Unfortunately, this was in some rough conditions, in a rough area to fly. The reports really aren't back yet as to what happened or why they crashed. But I'll be honest with you, I don't see the FAA, and through all the videos I've watched and through the little bit of research that I can do, I don't really see the FAA being part of this problem. The same goes for the air crash of Vince Neal's plane, and his plane skidded off the runway after one of the landing gear failed during a landing. Pictures have surfaced of that landing gear leaking fluid all over at a different airport prior to this incident. So that was a mechanical failure. Maybe it was a lack of oversight. Maybe it was a lack of inspections. But again, I don't directly see a link to the FAA issues. I guess I want to talk about I'm looking at my notes over here, don't mind me. I want to talk about the medical flight out of Philadelphia, especially because it involved a charity that I'm very much a fan of. Unfortunately, a patient of the Shriners Hospital was killed along with his mother and the two pilots. In fact, I think there were 7 people on that plane. 7 people died in this incident. This plane, right after takeoff, it wasn't even at cruising speed, did a pretty hardcore nosedive into the ground, creating a massive crater. Dramatic video, dramatic and terrible destruction. But frankly, folks, we don't really know what happened exactly on that plane or why it crashed. So as of now, I can't tie that to the FAA and the current administration. But what I can tell you is, on average, in America, we see 0 to 1 fatal accident in the aviation business per year. It is about to become March. It is February 28th. It is Friday. Okay. I think it's the 28th, but it's Friday. It's the end of February. And we have already had 13 fatal incidents in the United States. We've had helicopters crash. We've had airplanes crash. We've had a lot of private airplanes crash lately too. We had a pretty close near collision at Midway very recently, and it was almost a very nasty incident. But thank God the Southwest pilots were able to see the corporate jet taxiing across the runway they were landing on, and they did a go-around. They did a go-around at the absolute last second, and I have to commend them for doing that. I think, in my opinion, the air traffic controller hesitated before telling them to go around, and then they went around on their own accord. And maybe the air traffic controller shouldn't have hesitated, sure, but the incident itself is at fault of the executive jet pilots, the flex jet pilots, or whoever was controlling that aircraft at the time. The flex jet pilots were at fault for that one. They were clearly told where to stop and where not to stop. I will admit that the instructions that they had received were confusing to them. Instructions at Midway might be confusing at anyone. taxiing around an airport, a large airport. It's just not necessarily the easiest thing involved. That's why a lot of pilots have on their tablets instructions, maps, etc. Now, why this wasn't the case with these guys, why they didn't know where they were going exactly, I have no idea. But I will say I do not envy them in any way, especially when they got the call from the tower telling them that they needed to contact tower to receive a phone number for a possible pilot deviation. They're screwed. Someone's getting so fired, so fired. Honestly, after watching the video, after all of us watched the video, you don't think that they should really be operating an aircraft like that. However, in some incidents, it is known. Maybe you don't know it, but there are pilots out there that don't actually fly the plane. They will move the plane from the ramp to the gate, and from the gate to the ramp, etc. They're I don't know what they're officially called, but I call them ground pilots. All they do is taxi around. Sometimes they're better at their job than others. Now, in the Midway incident, I would suspect that anyone doing ground taxi at Midway is not going to have issues finding their way around the airport. They're going to have a proper map. So these pilots were likely just not familiar with the airport and from out of town. So again, to recap, everyone, as much as I want to blame Trump and Elon for what they're doing to the FAA and other federal agencies, these aircraft incidents, none of them seem to be related. That's not any more or less comforting to me, knowing that my family is getting on a plane here pretty soon. But there is definitely an uptick in accidents, and there's something going on. And I think it is very important to everyone that we look into what is going on and why. It's important to all of us. Airline safety is everybody's business now. This concludes the video. I would like to give a shout out to some people that I am not sponsoring. They did not sponsor me, but I'm giving them a big shout out. So I race for the Hill BMX racing team. We race out of Elgin, Illinois, the Hill BMX. Experience the thrill. I also want to support the Schaumburg Boomers. They are the local baseball team, minor league team that I enjoy their games a lot. They do a lot of good work. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a free shout out right now. The village of Roselle, all these things are great. And also, if you ever need any heating and cooling help, please don't contact me. You'll have to call my boss for that. And maybe I'll get his permission to mention his company on air someday. Have a great day, everybody.